We'll now get into the understandings of the mind, but I'm going to run a bit back over systems theory and evolution first, because it is important to understand in order to understand what I'm about to say about the mind. Okay. One of the key characteristics of systems that involves evolution and natural selection is stability. Okay. Uh, in natural selection. Okay. Systems can emerge and collapse. Any system, depending on the stability of their subsystems and interactions. That stability is key to evolution. Okay, you see this connection between stability and natural selection. Uh, so there's certain subsystems and interactions which bring stability and replication capacities to the system, to a system that they compose. Uh, so this there's a stability to a system. It can collapse depending on how stable the system is, and that's natural selection at play. Certain systems collapse and no longer replicate, and depending on their stability. Uh, and there's certain subsystems and interactions that make that system more stable. So it makes it affects the natural selection of that system and those subsystems. Which are those subsystems and interactions are adaptations. So those subsystems and interactions of a system could be described as adaptations of the system. Even cosmogony, as we'll get to here in a report later, not just biology, but so genes and memories encode biological adaptations, and eventually technological adaptations occur when animal brains become sophisticated enough. Genes and you see that this perspective of evolution and adaptations and all its encompassing things is much broader than our just a genetic perspective of evolution. It's not just genes, it's also memories. A society evolves, the memories of societies, the technology of society, uh, and it's not just the memories of our knowledge, but our emotions, our emotional memories evolved so that we forgive, love, and accept instead of having this more predatory uh, emotional perspective of the world, this alpha predatory one. Okay, so now we have a law of motion here, which is important to understand. Uh, to really understand like structural violence and how motions occur within the systems of reality. Okay, so we think it's free will. It's people are bad and there always will be bad, and really no, this law of motion will help. I hope alleviate that. That's a state determinism. Okay, uh, so the state of the system determines the motion of the system. Now, that state is the state of this is defined as the subsystems and the interactions of the system that are currently a part of the system. Okay, so the these interactions, the state of the system is changing. That I have my own internal set of interactions, my biology and what's going on with me, and it's determining my emotions. And but also there's a force outside of me. There's something that could hit me and nudge me and move me, and uh, but they wouldn't because I wouldn't let them. Not really, because I'm water and I move everywhere. I move with them. And that's the law of motion there. It's sort of like Newton's, very much like that. in that one system can affect the state of another system, and it can therefore change its motions. So, okay, so it's important to understand the state of the system determines the motions of the system, and with people, that's their genes and their environment, and the laws of society, structural violence, there is determining their state. The state of the system around them is changing their state, and it makes them move in violent ways. We see that in tribes and other, their violence is much lower, and it's because they have a better society from that perspective of structural violence. But okay, sorry for taking so long. Brain fart. Hiccup. It's been a while since I've covered this. Agency. Define some more terms here. Agency is defined as the state of an organism's mind and the resultant behavioral pattern. So agency is both the mind and the behaviors it helps cause. So you have a mind state, and you have an agency that's created from that mind state. So there are certain states of mind that have certain states that have certain sets of behavioral patterns because of the state. Mind is defined as the state of both the endocrine and nervous system, not just your brain, because hormones play a large part in the emotional perceptions of the mind, and that's there's an endocrine system has some effect, quite a bit of effect on that. Mind is designed. The mind is designed to reach functions. The agency and the mind are like designed, so they're designed, or rather evolved, I should say. But keep that kind of designer perspective. It's their evolution designs, but unconsciously. It's this unconscious design. That's how I like to think of it. It's designing for a purpose, and to serve certain functions. So parts of the mind are evolved, like those adaptations, the subsystem and interactions of the system. They're evolved into existence because certain adaptations are selected for, some are not. Certain subsystems and interactions of the system of the organism are selected for, and some are not. And those are the adaptations. Cover that, or revisit that. So it's sort of like a bridge. The mind is designed. Okay, life is like a bridge. We have all these functions we want the bridge to serve, so we design the bridge to serve those functions. In the same way, there's all these functions the mind must serve to replicate. So the bridge in this case isn't trying to have traffic across it. In this case, it's trying to replicate. We're trying to design evolution's design systems to replicate, and it designs figures out subroutines and functions for it to build subsystems and interactions to serve. So it makes it replicate better. It's to be more stable. So evolution makes minds that serve these certain functions, these certain subroutines. Wants water, sexual interactions, territory dominance, possessions, food. Okay, so another way to understand how genes and evolution, I'm going to go through a series of perspectives of the minds. Here's one as a computer program. Evolution builds the mind as a computer program that's been designed to play a game. Sort of like the computer AI opponents or allies in a video game. They're created to perform certain subroutines, these AIs, to achieve that main routine of winning the goal of the game, whatever the game may be. In the game of evolution, the program is evolving more and less subroutines, those adaptations, to win the game of maximizing the number of healthy genetic replications by being stable and having lots of replication capacities. So these subroutines are embodied as I said, adaptations. The genes learn to add and subtract these subroutines, these adaptations from the mind, and that help the mind win the game. Really, the brain and genes, the mind and the genes can be perceived as learning systems. They both learn and unlearn adaptations. The brain learns and unlearns new memories that help it replicate. The genes learn and unlearn new genes that help them replicate. But unlike the brain, where it learns during the organism's lifespan, the genes learn by certain genes dying and then being passed on. So the poor little system collapses, but we love it, and it helped us all be here. And the genes learn what doesn't maximize healthy replications by the genes that don't dying off or not replicating as much. Okay, so yeah, I think that makes sense. Will isn't free. I'll get into this more later as we'll see. So from the perspective, will isn't free. It's more programmed. There's a state of the system, and it's being programmed by evolution to being created. Like the AI program, it's not so much. You look at people; it's much more like AI programs in a game, and they're being evolved, programmed. And they can adapt. Its capacity to adapt, however, through learning new memories and evolving more and less genes, is also determined by its genes and environment. So it can change, but its capacity to change is limited. And it can decide, but its capacity to decide is limited. Make choices. So the player isn't really selecting its actions. It's making decisions because of systemic reasons. It's not you're selecting an action. It's more like the state of your system is making you move, and that's how all systems are moving. All systems move because of their state, and that's largely determined by your genes and environment. Uh, so it's more like, but your behavior does change over time through evolutions. Adaptations evolve off and on in the system. New memories are learned and unlearned. So it changes. It definitely changes, but that's all very much determined by a set of physical laws, this capacity to do this. So the state of your system is determining your movements, but you can change the state of your system to change your movements. But that's hard for people to do, and I would say almost impossible sometimes. And they just need help. Alone for them, impossible alone because they just can't help it. It's hard, very hard. We all need help. I can't. Everyone, the strongest persons, people rely on people around you. Be strong. Or I guess healthy. Okay, so all systems behave in this manner. The stars, the Earth, the Moon, the atoms, computers, vehicles, memories, cognition, emotions. Every object, every system imaginable in the universe is governed by the laws of systems, and that includes us. This law of motion, of state determinism, is applied to us. Subsystems and interactions are causing systems to move, not personal choice, not magic. It's like kind of like voodoo mysticism of like almost like with medicine. That, we need to be psychiatrists and medicine, mind medicine, and realize the mind isn't just this thing. It has structure. It can be treated. It's ill and it can be treated, and this illness is causing it to move in these very sad ways, and it can't help. So. But we can't see these laws at first. We can't see these laws in the structure of the mind, so we blame this non-scientific things, like personal choice, such as back when we had medicine, biological medicine, when we would say that it's demons. Demons are possessing people. That's why they're sick. That's why they did this. That's why they died. That's like that's when someone says people's will is free, you can't change it, and that's like saying, well, People are going to keep dying of this illness that we don't understand, and we can't do anything about it. Demons are possessing them. Yeah, but okay. That's a very, I guess, I suppose, defeatist perspective too. You know, if what if you can? Or you just, you know, and you just spent your time arguing that it can't be changed. I don't know. That's very, we can't or tackle our problems like that. We got to see problems and try to seek solutions. People don't. Yeah. People can change, but they can't at the same time help what they do. But they can be helped. One final analogy to help perceive the mind in evolution is to think of the genes or a genotype as like an engineer that creates its corresponding phenotype. Its phenotype is like a vehicle the genes build to replicate themselves. There's all these different subsystems and interactions of the phenotype that are adaptations, which a gene or sets of genes of the genome create and regulate. So there's the genotype and the phenotype. If you're familiar, I'm sure. The genotype is the type of the gene type, basically. There's the genes inside your cells and that type, and then there's the stuff it builds. That's the phenotype outside of the genes. So these genes inside the cell are building this like vehicle robot to help it replicate, to help them maximally replicate healthily, depending on the sex, too, which one they go, healthy or maximize replications number. Okay, the mind in this analogy is a system which makes the vehicle move in more complex ways. So the vehicle that the genes build is now much more complex. It has a brain, has a mind that helps it move in much more complex ways. It's that computer. It's like a computer, sort of like a computer. It can hold memories, but it also can modify those memories. Instead of you opening folders and modifying documents, the mind does it on its own. It associates or bonds different memories together, so it can bond emotional memories to its other memories, which makes it behave and feel certain ways towards such memories. If I associate love to the memory of a person in my mind, it will make me behave in loving ways towards that person. It will make me protect and help them. This computer is like a GPS of the vehicle, destinations in this GPS are analogous to these emotional bonds. Emotions create these destinations the vehicle wants to reach. If I love something, it creates certain destinations. If I hate something, it creates other more oppressive destinations. So evolution, that last paragraph, I should summarize. It's the mind is like this GPS, as I was saying. It creates all these destinations the robot wants to reach, and its emotional perceptions are those destinations. It creates these destinations, but it also has this cognitive side where it helps it map it out. Map out how to reach the emotions. The cognition is this, kind of the slave of the memories that are the emotions. The emotions create a destination, and then the cognition creates a route to get it, and making the vehicle or this robot move in certain ways to do that, so to help the little genes inside of them replicate. So evolution evolves certain emotional destinations that make the vehicle move in ways that help it replicate, such as feeling good about, depending on which, sex, mass sexual interactions, and which species, sex in which species, is likely one example. Or often feeling good about dominating and oppressively controlling the system to control scarce resources for replication purposes. So these are emotional bonds and destinations the genes and brain have learned to make the phenotype move in ways that help the genes replicate. So cognition in this analogy, actually, I'll recover this, is like the computer figuring out how to get to the destination. So we have these emotional bonds, which creates destinations in the GPS. And we have cognition, which figures out how to reach the destinations. Now, when we get to later stage human minds, or sapient minds, their agency metrics or numbers the GPS routes. So it has to gain, this is where we get into modern economics. It has to gain this much territory, has this much money, have this many possessions. It's all really well thought of how their agency is going to get to these oppressive destinations. You know, many people who genocided have had massive calculations of how they were going to reach these kind of emotional, very horrible, but naturally selected destinations. However, these biased destinations aren't very thought out. Adolf never really discussed if his destinations are right. He assumed they were. He kind of killed anyone who disagreed. It wasn't up for debate. He lived in this kind of biased emotional delusional destination, made through force. So he's inherited through natural selection that his destinations are right, and he has protected this destination with force. So human agency has thought about how to get these kind of oppressively inherited emotional destinations of genocide, slavery, sex, mass money, territory, and many others extremely thoroughly, but haven't really thought. They have a whole economic theory of how to do all that, but really haven't thought of the destination itself. We always hear through history, slavery's the economy, dude. Our economy collapsed without the slavery, blah blah blah. It's all just this kind of naturally selected. When you say the economy, it's these just memories of who thinks who owns what and who has this much money. It's just this economy of memories. It's not really the economy of the physical systems of Earth. It's just this kind of alpha male economy of who controls what of the Earth, who believes who controls what. Okay, so human and that kind of calculation and that kind of pursuit destroys the physical systems. They destroy the physical systems of Earth. I'll get into that more later to control it. But human agency has thought about how to. Already said that. Okay. And that's what I'm here to help with is help them understand these emotional destinations are. That's what I try to do. Where I find myself doing that. To help them with those destinations as a therapist, I guess. So it doesn't really, we don't really think of what would happen if, what would happen on these destinations if, alphas had all the money, or men in alpha state had all the money, all the territory, etc. We don't, but, they're not really programmed to think about those kind of things. Animal agency isn't really evolved to think about the destination. They've inherited. They're evolved to think about how to get to the destination, not the destination itself. So they do it. These things on instinct, without hesitation, questioning, because such destinations are what helped men in alpha state of our ancestors in large-scale social societies maximize the number of genetic replications. Often, in fact, as I said, discussion over such destinations are stifled. Prevents the question of the agency prevents itself from figuring out. I'll just go over it. Well, who cares? We'll go over it. The agency prevents itself from figuring out such destinations are wrong. So it prevents the questioning of why a few agencies. It prevents these questions of who should 8 men, or a few men have all the money compared to the rest of the United States or other regions. We don't ever question that. We just assume it's right because it's naturally selected, and any kind of questioning is prevented of because then you can't reach it as well. You know, it'd be questioning doesn't reach that destination. You can't have people questioning that or thinking about it. Then you can't reach it. Then you can't get all the money. You can't get all the territory people are talking about. So why? Yes. So it'd be kind of hard to get to the top of the dominance hierarchy and consolidate all the money if you're telling everyone. But it's much better to be secret about such destinations rather than truth and discussing them. The science does not go hand in hand with totalitarian alpha male societies, with maximizing money, more alpha male societies, territory possessions, positions and dominance hierarchy, sex, and sadism. Truth, in fact, prevents them from reaching the destinations of sadism, sex, dominance hierarchies, possessions, territory, maximizing money. It's better to pursue instead those things with lies and propaganda rather than truth. Truth doesn't reach those things. Lies and propaganda does. So these alpha male destinations, these emotional destinations, are inherently irrational. Therefore, you can't talk about them. So they're going to be inherently irrational. You can't rationalize them through discourse, scientific discourse. So, what's beautiful about our minds is, as I said, they can adapt on the spot. They can create new memories, new adaptations within the organism's lifespan. They can modify their behavior, but they're limited in this capacity by their environment and genes. Huge adaptations for people is empathy, love, forgiveness, and knowledge. These can be actualized in people's minds over time to alter their behaviors. So that's what I'm trying to do. Evolve the soul of humanity to alter its self-destructive behaviors by evolving these adaptations into existence and evolving the old adaptations of hate, sadism, greed, lust, and more out of existence. Truth is very interesting. Think of yourself as like a smartphone with a camera. Everyone's a smartphone now, okay? And this smartphone computer takes input from the environment with camera and builds a simulation out of that input to represent what it's looking at. So its perception of reality is skewed. It's not what's really there. It's a simulation or replication of what's there that has been constructed by the smartphone's camera and computer. That's how we perceive reality. We don't perceive reality for what it truly is. Our computer and camera, our brains and eyes, create a simulation of reality outside of us and within us. That is incomplete. That's what I call our sensory simulation, the simulation of the world our minds build out of sensory inputs. We can then interpret this sensory simulation further with thoughts, emotions, and scientific instruments. So I can think about what I just saw or feel certain ways if I sense someone hug me. If someone hugs me, I feel certain ways, certain inputs into me, and or I can peer into a microscope to see beyond what just my raw senses allow. So with truth, this, as I said, our experience is flawed. It's not perfect representation of reality. We don't live or experience actual reality, but a simulation of it that is constructed by our body, and then we think about it and perceive it further with scientific instruments. But we don't really see what's there. It's this thing that we got to figure out with our scientific instruments, with our thoughts, and figure out what's really there beyond just our sensory simulation and our thoughts about that sensory simulation. Okay, consciousness, as I said, this brings us into consciousness, is the sum total of our sensory simulation, our thoughts, and our emotions. Traditionally, the fragments of consciousness are called qualia, a thought, a sense, a feeling. But at least that's what I understand. But I divide the fragments of consciousness into the sensory consciousness up here, vision, hearing, etc. Okay, And the mind, so the different information within this, and it's all running in parallel as you see the senses, and it's recognizing patterns in it. But these different parcels of information within these senses are called sensory information, or SI. So that's an SI, that's an SI, that's an SI. Okay. So this top half is the sum total of sensory consciousness, or sensory simulation. Now, the mind uses this sensory information to create memories and to retrieve them. Now, the bottom half is caused by retrieving memories. We retrieve image thoughts, and we retrieve symbolic thoughts, and retrieve emotions, youthful emotions, more important than these. If our destination is to go off a cliff, just plunge our world into extinction, all our cognition is just getting us the faster GPS route to our oblivion, created by the interests of greed and others, the alpha male interests, alpha predator. So, a set of algorithms, they can't. That's what therapist is trying to do. Hopefully with that. That's what they inherit. It's evolution. Okay, so a set of algorithms operate on the information in sensory consciousness to retrieve them, and to retrieve and construct memories. So algorithms operate on this to retrieve memories and construct memories. And also algorithms operate on our image thinking and word thinking to cause us to retrieve certain things. It's like a computer. So, okay, memories. The function of memories are to help us respond to consciousness, sensory consciousness. One of the main functions. They are created from sensory consciousness. Something in our sensory consciousness occurs, and we can transfer this information into memories. Retrieval. When we then retrieve these memories to respond to consciousness, and we can retrieve memories to think about our sensory consciousness. Basically. Yeah. So, yeah. We retrieve, that's how the memories serve that function, is upon retrieval. They help us respond. Retrieving memories causes three main processes. Moving your body is caused by the retrieval of muscle memory or motor action memories. Thoughts are being caused by retrieving symbolic memories. Feelings are being caused by retrieving emotional memories. The structure. The structure of these memories. Okay. So we have, we'll take a break here actually.